I'm going to challenge something because I think we've made a dangerous assumption in leadership. We've started acting like leadership automatically comes with trust. I don't think it does. I think leadership comes with the opportunity to earn trust. Every promise kept builds trust. Every initiative abandoned weakens it. Every announcement people never hear about again teaches employees something. Every time we say, "This time will be different," that quietly turns into business as usual, leaves a mark. So when someone says, "I'll believe it when I see it," or "We've heard this before," this isn't always negativity. Sometimes they're speaking from experience. Sometimes it's disappointment. Sometimes it's someone who's invested their time, their energy, their hope, only to watch the initiative quietly disappear 6 months later. That's not resistance to change. That's resistance built from broken trust. And that's what we're talking about today. Change fatigue. How to lead people who've already been burned. And why one of the most important leadership responses isn't better communication, it's consistency. If we haven't met before, I'm Tina Code, founder of Change Decoded. I've spent my career helping leaders just like yourself turn ambitious visions into lasting results, guiding teams through technology transformations, acquisitions, organizational change, and periods of significant growth. And if there's one thing those experiences have taught me, it's this. Transformation isn't something that happens to an organization. It happens through its people, because organizations don't transform. The people do. And when people respond to change, they're often communicating information along the way. That's the foundation of the Resistance Decoder, a framework designed to help leaders understand what different forms of resistance are actually trying to tell us. Today's theme is trust-based resistance, the resistance that says, "I've heard this before," and the leadership response is, "Be consistent." Because trust isn't rebuilt through one inspiring presentation. It's rebuilt through consistent actions over time. Before we dive in, I just want to let you know that I've created a free change agent toolkit to help leaders identify resistance signals and respond more effectively during transformation. You'll find a link in the description below. One of the biggest challenges organizations face isn't that leaders don't care. It's that we expect them to lead change without ever teaching them how. Organizations often promote people because they're exceptional at what they do. The best engineer becomes the engineering manager. The best analyst becomes the team leader. The best project manager starts leading enterprise transformation. Then we ask them to lead people through uncertainty, to navigate resistance, to build trust, to communicate a compelling vision, to help people engage when the path ahead isn't clear. And yet, many leaders receive little to no formal development in leading organizational change. Research consistently shows that while leading change is considered one of the most critical leadership capabilities, far fewer leaders receive meaningful development in how to actually do it. This isn't about blaming leaders. Most are doing exactly what they were prepared to do. The problem is that we've invested heavily in teaching leaders how to manage projects, but not nearly enough in teaching them how to lead people through transformation. And that's where trust begins to erode. Not because leaders don't care, but because consistency, follow through, and trust building are leadership skills. And like every skill, they need to be learned, practiced, and modeled. Because leadership doesn't automatically come with trust. It comes with the opportunity to earn it. One interaction at a time, one decision at a time, one promise kept at a time. Trust-based resistance rarely starts with one failed initiative. It builds over time. Imagine someone who's been with your organization for 10 years. They've experienced multiple restructures at this point, several strategic priorities, a handful of culture initiatives, maybe a few digital transformations, new leadership, new operating models, and countless promises that this time it will be different. eventually something changes. They stop reacting to the announcement. They start evaluating whether leadership follows through. That's why trust-based resistance sounds like this. We've heard this before. I'll believe it when I see it. Let's see if this actually happens. Or, we've tried this 5 years ago. It didn't work then. Why would it work now? Those comments aren't always cynical. They're often cautious. They're someone trying to protect themselves from yet another disappointment. One of the easiest ways to recognize trust-based resistance is to listen for language rooted in history. Listen for phrases like, leadership always says that. They'll just move on to something else next month. Here we go again. Notice what's underneath those statements. People aren't questioning whether change is possible. They're questioning whether this organization will actually stay committed long enough to make it happen. They're asking one question: should I trust this? That's a very different conversation. Trust is rarely lost overnight. It's lost through patterns, announcing priorities that quickly disappear, launching initiatives without follow-through, changing direction before people have finished adapting, promising support, then moving on to the next priority. None of those moments seem significant on their own, but together, they teach people something. They teach people what to expect. I like to think of trust as a bank account. Every promise kept makes a deposit. Every follow-through builds the balance. Every abandoned initiative, every broken commitment, every unanswered concern, those, though, make withdrawals. And when employees say, "We've heard this before," what they're telling you is that the trust account has been overdrawn. In the video popping up, I introduced the resistance decoder that addresses the 6 other types of resistance and why it is so important to respond differently to each one. Imagine you're introducing a new change initiative. Leadership is excited. The vision is compelling. The strategy just makes sense. But someone in the back of the room quietly says, "We've heard this before." Many leaders immediately become defensive. They start explaining why this initiative is different, why the strategy is stronger, why leadership is committed this time. But what if that's the wrong response? Instead of asking, "How do I convince them?" ask, "What happened that caused them to say that?" Maybe they watched the last initiative quietly disappear. Maybe they invested months of work into something leadership abandoned. Maybe they filled out surveys that no one ever talked about again. Now, you're solving the right problem. Not skepticism, trust. This is why the leadership response to trust-based resistance is consistency. Not bigger announcements, not better presentations, and not another town hall. Consistency. Consistency means following through, doing what you said you were going to do, communicating even when there isn't exciting news to share, acknowledging setbacks instead of pretending like they didn't happen, closing the feedback loop, making decisions that align with your stated priorities, showing up long after the kickoff meeting is over. Because trust isn't built during the launch. It's built in everything that happens afterward. People don't decide whether to trust leaders because of just one inspiring speech. They decide because of repeated experiences over time. If trust has been damaged, the good news is that it can be rebuilt. But it usually happens much more slowly than it was lost. Start by making fewer promises and keep every one of them. Be transparent when plans change. Explain the why. Close the feedback loop. If people shared concerns, tell them what happened because of the conversations you had around those concerns. And perhaps more importantly, stay visible, stay engaged, stay consistent. Because trust grows through predictability. When leaders misdiagnose trust-based resistance, they often communicate more. They have more presentations, more emails, more enthusiasm, more vision. But communication without consistency doesn't rebuild trust. It leads them to be skeptical. Eventually, people stop challenging the initiative, not because they believe in it, but because they're emotionally checked out. And once people stop believing their voice matters, it's incredibly difficult to bring them back. The biggest shift trust-based resistance asks us to make as leaders is this: stop asking, why don't people trust us? And start asking, what experiences have we created that taught people not to trust us? Because trust-based resistance isn't usually saying, I don't want this change. It's often saying, I need a reason to believe this time it's different. And those are two very different conversations. The next time someone says, we've heard this before, pause before calling them cynical and ask yourself, what experience taught them to say that? Because leadership doesn't automatically come with trust. It comes with the opportunity to earn trust. One promise kept, one conversation followed through, one consistent action at a time. Because every change initiative either strengthens trust or weakens it. The choice belongs to the leader. If this video was helpful, subscribe to the channel and download the free Change Agent Toolkit using the link in the description below. And let me know in the comments, what's one thing you've seen a leader do that genuinely earned your trust during a change? Until next time, resistance is information. Every response to change is a signal. The job of a leader is to decode the message. I'm here to help. Let's decode change together and lead change inside and out.